All right, I think I'm back. Back from vacation, ready to pick up where I left off. Um, Friday. Friday? Yeah, Friday. Wherever that was. I believe, if I remember correctly, I was right in the middle of mass manufacturing some stems and failing at it. So, back over here. So today I'm going to finish up this stem that's sitting here on the thing. I'll probably do some streaming later. I'm going to leave here probably about half an hour or so. When I come back, I will probably stream something. And I think I'm actually going to try to make another two-piece later. There's been a lot of interest in one particular piece. I don't know that I'm going to replicate it exactly because I don't do that. But I might be able to make something that's kind of similar-ish, at least in style, and then see if they like that. And if not, well, it'll be a first come, first serve. Whoever gets the pipe that, and the pipe in question is the hammer. I've had at least 3 claims for the hammer, and that would be this guy right here. This guy right here, the one that I stole the stem from in order to make the other pipes complete and take pictures of them. So this is the stem that I'm trying to replace for the other pipes, not for this one. I'm going to leave this as the original for this one. And then I'm going to go ahead and try to turn another one of these, or something similar anyway, out of cherry, because there seems to be a lot of requests for cherry. I will be picking up more cherry the next time that I order because I really like the way the last 2 pieces turned out with the little sunburst in them. And when I'm turning it and I can see where that is, I can kind of place it strategically, kind of like this guy. Hold on, let me run over here. So these 2 pieces I'm going to show you, these are both the cherry pieces that I did last week. There's this one here. The light coloring around the bowl edge is actually just the sunburst. It doesn't really show up as well on the camera as it does, probably because I don't have some setting right or something. I'm sure there's a way to make this look better, maybe buy a better camera. I am using a C922 for this camera here, and Logitech, and it's actually a really nice camera, but I'm just not very good at this. When I had the show, I had a guy for this. You know who you are if you're watching. So I like the fact that I can kind of strategically place that little light mark on this one. I even liked this one. It showed up kind of over here, and then it had this really cool little X pattern right there that I like. If I would have put a little bit more thought into it, I probably would have bored the stem hole right beneath that, but it's still a really cool piece. One of my favorites. I'm babbling. This is boring. Not that the wood turning itself is any more exciting, but there it is. So I just want to let everybody know I am back from vacation, if that matters. It was my birthday. My wife and I went out to a little getaway thing, with a private pool and whatnot, and it was a really nice time. It was a really, really super nice time, very relaxing. I put my shop shirt on here, so you don't think that I'm just a bum. This is the shirt that I wear anytime it's a little chilly out here. It's currently, oh well, all right. It's lying to me, I think. Earlier it said it was 45 degrees outside, now it says 55. Either way, still pretty chilly in the garage, so putting on the ragged shirt that smells like the shop and a little bit of me. Let me go ahead and get ready here, and then we'll get started on the, what was it, last button? And then I'll get started on the stem over here. Got to finish my cigarette. I have my mandatory cigarette and coffee. Those are necessary for my survival as well as the survival of those around me. Alrighty. There we go. Got my apron, got my shop shirt, have my cigarette, got my coffee. My hair is doing weird stuff. It's normal. Let's do this thing. Oh, wait. Make sure I have my personal protective equipment. What does PoE stand for? I don't know. Anyway, this is my don't hit my face device. Everybody who's doing any kind of woodworking, particularly lathe work, should have a full face guard, because I'll tell you what, if something comes off this lathe, particularly at the higher speeds, even if it doesn't hit your eye, it can do some damage. So putting on the like my face device, and here we go. I don't know if this is, I will probably be making adjustments to everything as I go here, just because I haven't been here for a bit and everything's all wonky. Alright, so the thing I need to do here is I need to take this down to the diameter that I desire, which, as you saw earlier, is pretty narrow. Still going to try to do that tapered piece for the bell pipe, because the bell pipe has this little lip here, and I could have actually gotten rid of it when I was boring. I could have countersinked and just took that little bit off, but I really like it. I like the continuity of it. So what I want to do, well, and don't get me wrong, my plans usually become something completely different once I get into it, but the plan is to make a tapered stem that will fit down in here. The other thing about this particular pipe, though, is the stem. I don't know if I want to make a 5-inch stem for it, because I tried a 5-inch stem. I'm going to be boring for a minute more. I tried this 5-inch stem, and there's a couple problems with this stem. Even though I really like it, I actually think I'm going to make a pipe to fit this stem, which is the first time that I've gone that direction. But I really like it. I like these little features here, the little details. The problem, though, is you can see it is a very, 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 very thick diameter. And you know, my wife was like, "Oh, just put it on the lathe and turn it down a little bit more." And I actually like it. I like the thickness of that. I feel like I just need to make a meatier pipe for it. But as you can see, even with this, it's a tight fit. It would go all the way in if I had tapered that. But even if it fit perfectly, number one, you're always going to see a little bit of this lip here. I don't feel like trying to hand route that out. And it's just really long for this particular pipe. Part of that, again, is probably the thickness. So I'm going to try to cut a tapered stem for this and see if making it a little bit more narrow but leaving the length might help. I'm going to try to design it so that if I need to cut it down, I can take the same stem and just cut it down a little bit, sand off a bit of the taper wherever I do the cut, and then try to fit it into the pipe. And then this will go up on the store. I have a couple pipes that I've been telling everybody locally that I'm going to throw up on my store that I haven't yet, because I feel like I'm cheating a little bit with this stem situation. So that's why I really want to get through this. It's kind of hard for me because I don't normally go into something knowing exactly what I'm going to do. I like it to just kind of hit me as I'm playing with it, but I do need some stems. So here we go. Let's do the thing. I'm going to get a little aggressive with this and turn the, I've been trying to give a little bit more detail in these videos. If anybody wishes to comment on that and let me know if my talking is like super boring and you're like, you know what, just get into the wood turning. I'm here to hear the sound, not to listen to you talk. I can completely understand that. But I do want to try to go over some of what I'm doing so that, so that those of you who don't know how this works might get a little bit of insight, and B, so that those of you who might be better than me at it can maybe make some suggestions. But I'm obviously I'm not Norm Abrams, so I'm not going to be very good at explaining everything. But I am cranking this puppy up to about 700 RPM. Normally I would turn a piece like this lower around 550, 600, but that's for roughing. And even though we're still roughing, this is still sort of cutting because we're already rounded. And then I'll probably take it up to about 800, 850 to do any detailing, cutting work. And then I usually like to keep it around 800 to 1,000 for my first polishing pass, and then I increase it. Most people decrease it, and you really should decrease it. I increase it because I'm lazy, and also I've noticed that when I use these I use these rolls of abrasive paper, and it's actually a lot easier to do the detail work on these with this, and I can speed it up and get a really nice fine polish. I still have to pick up some more wax and some other things that will help me finish some of the pieces a little bit better. For the most part, though, I just throw a couple coats of mineral oil on it, and then just a little bit of beeswax to seal it. And I like the way it looks because it more or less keeps the natural color. It darkens a little bit with the mineral oil, and it yellows just a little bit with the beeswax if you're a little bit too heavy with the beeswax. But really, I just use the beeswax to fill in some of the rough spots that oil won't do, because oil's not it seeps in, it doesn't fill in. So anyway, that was all terribly exciting, I'm sure. I'll shut my mouth now and do this thing. Now, another thing to consider when you're deciding on your speeds and your tool use and how aggressive you can be is the wood itself, obviously. This is soft maple, so it's like super forgiving when it comes to being aggressive with the tool, really digging in. As a matter of fact, I'm actually going to speed it up just a little bit because this is going so well. And once you start to hit the grains where you would see the tree rings, if you were to cut the tree and look at the stump, where the rings are, those were the previous layers of bark. Those tend to be a little bit denser, particularly in trees like maple. Cherry, it's not so bad. Cherry has a very nice even grain. Sometimes when you start to get into the smaller diameters of these pieces, depending on where they were actually sawed from in the lumber, you can get some really stubborn spots that'll either grab your tool or will kind of chunk and leave a very frayed edge along the surface of the wood. And I'll show you how to take care of that, because during this stage, as I'm bringing the diameter down, I'm probably going to end up with quite a bit of that. You might even see some here. I mean, you can see this little fuzziness. This is going to happen everywhere because I've just been using the roughing gouge or the round gouge. But like right in here, I would suspect, we'll start to see a little bit more of that fraying, and it's really super easy to take care of with the skew. Sometimes it will make a god-awful noise. Honestly, when it comes to using the skew on this, and the skew is the flat guy right here, when you're using the skew on it, you'll get to a point where it's almost perfectly level with the edge of the skew, but there might be little imperfections, and you'll start to get this rubbing noise. That rubbing noise isn't bad, it's annoying, but it means that you've pretty much flattened to the edge of the tool, and you can move on. So anyway, so if you hear those weird squealy noises, stuff like that, that's what's going on there. I'm going to take this up to, I'm going to wait for it to come up to speed. We're about 690, 700, there we go. So now I'm going to bring it up to 850, sounds good to me. Let's try this. Let's go at it. Oh, one more thing. This is now that I'm like starting to tell people things, I keep thinking of all these things maybe I should mention.
The general rule of thumb for turning any wood is the larger it is or the harder it is, the slower you go. And there's also diameter to take into consideration. You want to turn larger pieces much slower, and part of the reason for that is so that you don't end up with chipping, catches, that kind of thing. So here we go. And again, right now what I'm doing is I'm using the gouge, the round gouge here, and I'm tilting it like this on the tool rest so that this edge is almost perpendicular with the surface of the tool rest, and that more or less turns this into a cutter, particularly when you're sweeping from the headstock to the tailstock. If you switch it this way, it even though you would think, oh well, it's just the same thing in the opposite direction, it's really not, because you can still run this from the head to the tailstock, and it will act more like a scraper. Now later I will actually show you the difference between a scraper and a cutter, because even though I don't have a bowl scraper, I do have my round scraper here that I can use to show you that. And then we have cutters, skews can be cutters, parting tools can be cutters. They're the things that you do the fine detail with, and when you're done you end up with an almost finished surface. And I do change up my technique a little bit. I'm not sweeping right now, I'm just digging right in, because I know that at this diameter I can take off probably a ½ inch width down with just this edge of the tool. If it were a smaller gouge, like this guy here, this is a ½ inch round gouge. I couldn't be that aggressive. I would have to be down here. You see, well, it works just as well. It just takes a lot longer. And then I'll go back to my sweeping technique. I kind of change it up, partly just so my hands are doing something different, and just like playing with it. Oops, see, there we go, we got a little catch there. That was my fault, I had it at a bit of a bad angle. Your tool rest surface actually has the perfect angle on the top of it if you keep the tool down on the rest even and flush with the surface. There are times, of course, that you want to lift or you want to rotate, depending on what you're doing. And really, once you start to get into it and you start to play with it, you learn how to hold it, and you'll learn for yourself what's easy, what's not easy, what works, what doesn't work, what catches the work and what doesn't, so on and so forth. So I'll go ahead and I'll do the next little bit with the sweeping pass, just so you can see the difference. I don't really think there's a significant difference in speed between the two. Like I said, I think it's more psychological on my part that, I dig in ring after ring after ring. Now there are reasons to do that too. If you're trying to hit a very specific taper, you're going to want to choose equal increments along the piece and dig those down with maybe your parting tool. And your parting tool can be used two ways. Your parting tool can be used this way to cut in and part like this. And it does that. It does it really, really quick. And that's also how you would separate parts if you had multiple parts on one piece. And then, of course, you can dig little valleys in if you use it long ways and do this. Sometimes a little bit of wood might get caught on the end, so always make sure you clear your tool here and there. Otherwise, you might just be rubbing and causing nothing but friction and maybe even dulling your tool. But as you can see, that leaves you this nice little groove here that you can, don't do that. What I just did was bad. But you can see this little groove here, and so if you're doing something like, for instance, if you're doing a baseball bat, you start out doing a baseball bat by measuring down 4 inches, and there's a list that you can follow. It varies depending on the bat, where you know what diameters. This one, there was a ring here, and I already took this shape down to that ring. I don't know if you can really tell. There's a slightly thinner ring here, and then of course a much thinner ring here, and then this is the smallest ring going into the handle, which is usually 10 inches long, and then there's a little bead that you put at the end for the knob. But that's usually, so if you're doing a taper, that's you do want to cut into so that you have a frame of reference as you start to get the material down, and then you can kind of adjust the taper by hand. So super exciting stuff. Back to the task at hand. I'm going to go ahead and sweep. This might catch a little bit. We'll see. You see, there we are down to the diameter that we chose there. The other thing, you can test your round by lightly placing the tool on the work. As you can hear, I hope you can hear me talking still. You can hear that little smooth. If I go over here, I got a little bit of bounce. So I must have chipped something right there, or there might still be just a little bit of flat spot. It helps to shut the lathe off and manually inspect the work. There it is. That's where I did that little stutter there and screwed up. But see what you can do. Just bouncing your tool can have devastating effects on your work. And you'll feel that in the little test there with the tool. Now, right now, I'm being a little bit loose with my speeds and everything because this is obviously, it's not flat, or not level, not even, not parallel on either side. But I'm not really worried about it because I'm just stripping material away. I'll worry a little bit more about finesse once I get down closer to my desirable diameter. Another thing we have to be aware of is the spur drive. You definitely don't want to get your tool caught in the spur drive because it can kick the tool, it can break the spur. I mean, there's all kinds of bad, nasty things that can happen, so avoid the sharp spinning blade of death. Okay, one thing that you can do at this end here where the spur drive is, in this case, I really want to get a diameter that's much narrower than the diameter of the spur drive, so I can set myself a little safety region here that I will have to cut off, and I'll probably do that with my little pull saw. But I'll start just, I know where the ends of the spur drive are. I'm going to give it a little bit of a safer distance there, maybe go in about 1/4 inch, and just cut in a valley with my parting tool. I think my parting tool needs sharpening. Now we are now narrower than the diameter of the spur, so I definitely don't want to go any further towards the headstock when I'm doing any of my cutting or roughing. Now sometimes your parting tool, when you're digging these deeper valleys, can kind of get caught. First off, you want to try to keep it so that you're shaving so if it's round, so that you're at kind of an angle where you're shaving off the very top layer and slowly bringing the tool up and down into the wood as you go. You'll find a nice even pace for that. But sometimes you can get a little bit of rubbing on the sides as you're cutting these valleys. There are two things that you can do about that. One is to slightly shift the tool side to side, and then I also like to, just to be on the safe side, take maybe 1/4 or 1/2 of the thickness of the tool and cut just another extra little wood cut. And the nice thing is, so that also gives you a little bit of, so you go in maybe 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch deeper on this one, and then switch back and forth. Now I'm going to check this with the calipers. You're not really supposed to do this when it's running, according to every shop teacher in the world, I'm sure, but everybody I know and myself, we just go ahead and pop it on down there. You know, just make sure it doesn't grab and kick back or something like that. And if it does, just just pull it away. Don't freak out. The worst thing you can do in any situation is panic. The other day, I think I got a tool caught. I can't remember what it was. I did something bad happened. The work started to go wonky. Just calm down, pull the tool away, shut the machine off. That, your first instinct should be shut the machine off. Stop the thing from spinning and being dangerous. Now this is actually going to be the beginning of my taper. This is set to approximately the thickness of the bit that I used to bore, and one of the reasons why I did that, and it's a very tight fit on this bit, and the reason that I do that, you can see it kind of sticks there, is to keep it a little bit tight. I know I'm going to have to trim in order to get it to fit right, but it's always better to have more and take away than to take away too much, because you can't put more back. And if you make a mistake along the way, particularly when you're roughing, this is why it's good to take your time when you're bringing something down to a diameter, is because if you make a mistake, wood is very forgiving. You might have to change your plan a little bit, you might have to change your design a little bit to compensate for the mistake, but it's easily done. So, here we go. Pretty close. Ooh, really close. Now, because I'm going to do a taper, I'm actually going to I'm going to make this so thin that this, alright, so right there, that's probably, if I were to make a lip here and then make a wider diameter going down, that's the part that would be inserted into the pipe. I would leave it right there because it's nice and tight over the caliper, and then I could just use a little bit of sandpaper to take it down to fit nice and snug. But because I'm making a taper, and I'm not really concerned about how long or how deep the stem will go into the pipe, I'm actually going to take that just a bit down so I know for certain that I have the taper that I want. That's probably perfect. Doesn't take much. Yep, slides right on and off there. I'm going to go back to my rounding tool here, or my round gauge, and try to get this down pretty close to that diameter. Then I'll decide what the shape of the taper should be and any detailing that I want to put in. Now what I'm doing here is I'm cheating just a little bit. I'm not using the rounding gauge as a scraper or a cutter. In this case, I'm actually using the round part because I know how sharp my tool is. It's a little bit quicker. I'm pretty good at keeping things fairly even, and I really want to get through this piece because I have to go in about 3 minutes. Just remember that the whole design of your tool is to transfer the shape of the tool onto the wood. And if you can use that to your advantage in other ways, by all means do it. There are rules. Some rules are more like guidelines than actual rules. I also do my dado cuts on a router table instead of with a dado blade because I have a router table. I don't currently have a dado blade, and dado blades are expensive. Side note there. We'll get into furniture later after I built the workbench. That's coming down really nice. And now I'm already kind of starting to leave a taper here because I know this is where my mouthpiece is going to be, and I know that I'm going to go thinner this way. I'd rather have more wood to work with, so I start my taper pretty early. patient will not help you. I say that, but I don't follow it. So, sue me. Another thing I think I want to do here, I'm going to take this this little extra flange down just a little bit, because I really do want to have my tool rest a little bit closer for this work, or it's going to start to vibrate the tool and make a very uneven surface. And one of the reasons why I'm moving the tool while I do this is to give the metal a little bit of time to relax, to cool down, so that I don't dull the edge of my tool faster. And that's probably perfect. Now again, you're not supposed to do this while the machine is running, but you know, I know my lathe. If this was a tree trunk, I wouldn't do that, because a tree trunk will hurt you. I'll probably do some larger stuff on the big mean greenie there, big green meanie, whatever, so that you can see how some larger things are turned. I just don't really need to for these pipes. But maybe we'll do some bowls or something later on. And then what I would do is turn the headstock away from the beam on my lathe, so that I'm not restricted by the tool clearance. We'll go over all that later time. Now see, this taper is unnecessarily fat at one end. I don't think my ring is going to be that big, so I'm going to go ahead and take that down too. Ooh. Alright, that should probably leave me plenty of material to play with. So, now this is when I want to start getting real careful, because this is now so thin that if I were to chip down here or catch the tool, I risk snapping the work in half. I'm actually starting to see a little shape here that I like. So with my round scraper here, I'm going to go ahead and cut a little bit of a valley in right here. I'm going to go ahead and use this, because it's already in my hand, to take the diameter down here, because nobody wants that kind of situation on their lips. That's actually kind of cool. I kind of like that just the way it is. I'll smooth it just a little, real lightly, going over it with the blade to get rid of some of my little corkscrew patterns that I left from being real quick. I like that diameter. It's starting to look a little gnarly there. So now it's time for the skew. I'm going to use the bigger one just so I can make quicker work of this. Alright, round this off real quick. I actually like that little dimple, so I'm going to leave it there. And there you have it. I believe that is a finished stem. When I return, we're going to go ahead and take this off. We'll polish this, and we'll take off this little flange with the pull saw, sand it down, flip it over, sand it down again, so that we're going both ways to get a little bit more of an even finish. Oil it, wax it, and try it on the bell. So until then, see you later.